Very important medical disclaimer. Information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health care provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment before undertaking a new health regimen. Welcome to the Holistic Health Explained podcast. I'm your host, Shantae Fox, and my guest for today's episode is Toya Danielle Yarbrough, the owner of Tricky Royalty Empowerment Cafe. Born facing health challenges and economic hardships, Toya transformed her early struggles into a powerful mission to inspire women in wellness, business, and marriage. As a licensed practical nurse and certified case manager with a master's in organizational leadership, Toya combines her healthcare experience with business acumen. Through her Empowerment Cafe, she creates a space where women can find support, guidance, and motivation to overcome obstacles and achieve their full potential. Toya's personal journey from a sick child with limited means to a successful entrepreneur and mentor embodies her belief in the power of resilience and self-empowerment. Her work continues to touch the lives of countless women, helping them navigate the complexities of health, career, and relationships. Welcome, and thank you for being here today, Toya.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So we met several years ago now when you hosted your first Tricky Royalty event here at Sozo. And even though we've known each other for a little bit of time now, there's a question I've been wanting to ask you, but I just keep forgetting to do it whenever I see you in person. So today is going to be that opportunity. But before I get into that, I'm going to ask you our icebreaker question of would you please share a fun fact or something that many people might not know about you?
So, something that people might not know about me is I'm double jointed in all of my fingers.
Oh, okay. I wish we had video so everybody could see that.
Yes. So it's a nice way to freak kids out when I was little.
So it's something you've been for your whole life pretty much?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes.
So my off-topic question that I've been meaning to ask you for so long is, where does the name Tricky Royalty come from?
That is a great question, and I feel like I should probably put it everywhere.
A lot of people ask you that.
Yes, a lot of people ask me, but it's my icebreaker for my business, really.
Okay.
But the word tricky, my name is Toya, my husband's name is Ricky. So together, we are tricky. And then royalty, because in the spiritual realm, in the kingdom of God, which I grew up in church, we're all royalty because we are the daughters and sons of the King. Mm-hmm. So it was to remind everyone, even when your head's down, even when you're going through things in life, that together as a couple and a married couple, things can get tricky. Mm-hmm. But it's also tricky to remember that you're royal. So right. Tricky Royalty.
I like that. I wouldn't have ever put that together either.
Yes.
I like it. That's cool. Thank you for sharing that. Now my question has finally been answered.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So back on topic for today's episode. You do wear a lot of hats and offer many services, right? But today I'd like to go in a little deeper about your Royal Tummy Relief Services, because I feel like that's something that I actually hadn't heard of. So I'm sure there's probably a lot of other people out there who don't know that this service exists. So I'd like to highlight that and let you explain that a little bit for us today. So can you please tell us what exactly is tummy manipulation or release? What do you prefer to call it too?
So I like to call it manipulation. I feel like, but the word manipulation, people kind of misconstrue the meaning, because what I'm actually doing is manipulating the, I'm just going to use medical terms, the feces that are stored within your abdomen. Okay. So I am literally physically with my hands moving from large intestine to small intestine to make sure that the peristalsis gets jumped back up in your stomach. Because a lot of times when you're going through stress or trauma, or you're having your trauma triggered by something, your stomach seizes up. Right. Emotions make your stomach either do two things. You're going to have diarrhea or constipation.
Right.
Right.
Very true.
So so I prefer manipulation, but you will feel relieved when you're done.
Okay. So I believe I remember reading on your site. So you specialize in doing this service for women, right? But I'm sure it's something that any, men or women can benefit from, right? But can explain to us what the many benefits are for this particular service. Like who should be receiving this service and why?
So I would say anybody that's experiencing abdominal irregularity. Like usually the first thing that happens when you tell somebody I haven't had a bowel movement in 3 days, they tell you to go to the medicine cabinet, right? No one says, well, what have you been going through?
Right. No.
Like what was your trigger? Why? Like sometimes it's simple. I'm not drinking enough water, but sometimes it's, I'm really stressed because there's a test, or I'm about to get married, or I'm moving to another country. And your stomach is harnessing all of that. So anytime that you're going through transition and you start to experience something that's abnormal with your current stomach regimen, like there are people that have been dealing with IBS for years.
Right.
Or IBS-C, which is IBS with constipation. Usually if you keep a journal, you can find out that there was a trigger right before your constipation. So anybody that's experienced those kinds of things, which is usually women who are aware, you have to be able to interflect a little bit and say, okay, wait a minute, this changed. Because sometimes change can be good change, but it still affects like marriage is a great thing. Like if you have a wedding coming up, that's amazing. But it triggers stress in your abdomen. And so that's usually when you should call me.
Okay. Yeah. I guess it can also happen too if you're not eating the right things, right? And you get that constipation, and that's happening as well from I just had that happen actually not too long ago, where I actually had stopped eating something for a while that was something that I would eat on a regular basis. And then I had it 3 days in a row and then got really cramped, cramps that would hurt. And I realized I haven't had that in a while. But then I realized oh my God, I think that's what it was from eating this item that was a staple in my life, but I was just accepting this pain every now and then, and it would pass, eventually. But I'm like, oh my God, okay, I think that's a trigger for me. This food is a trigger for me, and I need to stop, just cut it out.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So I guess, we got to keep in a journal for that too. I'm sure is beneficial to figure those food items out.
Exactly.
Can you give us a little visual of what a tummy release session would look like? Like, can you walk us through what a typical session would feel like or look like for somebody who's getting it done for the first time?
So the sessions are 60 minutes.
Okay.
You come in, make sure you're wearing comfortable clothes because your abdomen's going to be exposed. So usually you come in, I introduce myself, you do an assessment. So again, we kind of know where we're going and where we're coming from. So you do an assessment, we kind of go over the assessment, and then you lay down on a flat surface, lift your shirt up, or I've had people take their shirts off. You're free with me. I'm a nurse, by the way, if you forgot that. So you're free with me. Then we turn on soft sounds because, again, we're trying to de-stress. And so the best way to de-stress is with your mind. And then I'm using aromatherapy. So things like lavender are in the oils. So we're also igniting our senses and telling our senses that we are trying to de-stress. And then we start at the top of your abdomen, which is right under your breastplate. And then I take my fingers and we kind of just work. I can't see my hands, but we kind of just work and follow the pattern. If you ever seen an anatomy picture of an abdomen, you see like the stomach and then the large intestines, the small intestine. It's almost like a highway, like a zigzag highway. So I follow your abdominal highway and I kind of feel and see where things are. I can, like if you have a blockage or a large bulk of something, I stay there for a while and kind of just work it out. You can actually feel
that in your body. Okay.
You can feel it. Yeah. And then, so you work it out. Once I'm done kind of just doing my first initial workout, because sometimes people are free of everything. Like there's nothing. And I'm going to tell you, it's normal to gas.
Okay. Yeah,
Please pass gas. This is a safe space, and we're trying to get stuff out. Okay. Right. So just make sure that
let it go.
Let it go. And then I have what are called abdominal cups. So almost like when you see people get cupping done, they're like that, but they're plastic. Okay. And they're suction. So I suction again right under your breastplate, and we just move throughout your abdomen and just get the flow going. And we acknowledge that it's okay for peristalsis to happen. Peristalsis is something that is your body's way of squeezing. It's squeezing feces through the abdomen. Okay. When you're stressed, your body is getting a signal from your brain saying, no, we don't have time for that right now. So by doing all of these, while I'm taking the suction, it's sending the signal back to your brain saying, wait, it's like a jumper cable. Okay. For your stomach, right? Like it's like telling your stomach, well, we need to get started again. And so then we flow through again, and then we go back with our fingers, we flow through again with the cupping tool, and then in the very end, you just get a light tummy rub. Almost like, the best way I know how to describe it is when you have a baby who's gassy, and you're a mommy, and you take and you rub their tummy until they feel better and they pass gas. That's pretty much what the last part is. Okay. And then you just sit there in your thoughts. We do reinforcing thoughts. So if you tell me I've been stressed because of blah, 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 the whole time I'm telling you to make sure that you keep your IM going on in your mind while I'm working on your stomach. Okay. And then after that, we clean you all up. The room smells amazing. You smell amazing. And usually after, again, you get dressed again. And then I encourage you to book your next appointment. So that's usually how the whole session goes. Okay.
Is there a certain number of sessions that are recommended, or is it just kind of a case by case, depending on the person's situation?
Yeah, it's definitely case by case. I think people who, again, are more aware and more transparent about what's causing it, then they should come again. Yeah. If you have, the kinds of thoughts of, well, no, that's not really what's bothering me. I have all this stuff going on, but I'm good. That's not what, one session is plenty. Because you're not ready for change, and if you're not ready for change, your stomach's not ready for change.
Yeah, it's not going to help.
It's not going to help. No.
Gotcha. Is this okay? Okay, so once they're done with the session, and you said, it could cause some gassiness, could it actually cause them to have to go, right then? Or is it something that's, takes a little time to work its way through and finally have that release?
So again, case by case. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you, if I'm doing my manipulation and I can feel that you're we're at the end, you know what I mean? You're probably going to go to the bathroom within the hour after we're done. Yeah. But if I found that your blockages were up high, what I'm going to tell you to do is to go home, drink lots of water and something warm, whatever you like. Yeah. Just to keep it going. And then I always recommend that you drink at least a gallon of water when you finish, just to help the flush, because your peristalsis is already going. So you might as well just start flushing it out. Right. And then obviously anytime you drink anything warm, it lubricates your intestinal tract. So you want that lubrication to allow movement. So, but some people, they don't make it out. Some people's I gotta go right now.
Right
here. Exactly. And like I said, I think the most freeing thing is being able to pass gas, because that again allows for movement to happen. And so many people don't want to pass gas because we're told that it's a bad thing. Right. But when the saying, it's good for your heart, it's good for your heart. So pass gas as much as you can. Just say, excuse me.
Okay. Is this something that could be used as a preventative measure for, let's say, somebody that does have a lot of issues with constipation? Is this something they can go into, even when they're not having problems, to try to prevent that from happening?
Absolutely. So my goal is for anybody that's came once and that knows that's their issue, that it's not food. It's not that I'm not drinking enough water. And for myself, I know you read in my bio, I was born with what's called an inverse bowel system. So my entire bowel system went the wrong direction.
Oh, wow.
So when I was a baby and I went home, my feces came up through my mouth.
Really? I've never even heard of that. I didn't know that was a thing.
No, there's, I think we're 2%.
Wow.
There's a 2% chance of having someone like me.
Wow.
And so I've had over 20 something surgeries refixing, like, have you ever seen images of babies like with their intestines hanging outside in a bag outside their body? Yeah, but I'm that girl, like in the NICU where their intestines were. So I've had intestines removed. I've had, lots of different times in my body in my life. The last time when I was 40, which was a few years ago, I had a complete reconstruction. So that being said, for me, it's structural.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can drink. There's nothing I can eat, to change this. My peristalsis is dead. So I had to learn ways like this. So if you're somebody that has, if you're one of the 2%, I'm your girl. But even if you're somebody with another structural issue or debilitating disease, like people with lupus, people that are diabetic, people with other autoimmune diseases, the medication that they have to take is going to cause constipation. There's nothing they can eat, drink, whatever. They're just going to be constipated. So those type of people need these types of services.
That's good to know. What about Crohn's? Is that something
Crohn's
good for
disease.
Crohn's too?
Right.
Okay. That's good to know. Really good. Is it beneficial to people who have the opposite problem, like where they're too loose and having too many bowel movements?
Well, yes, no.
Okay.
Because if you have diarrhea, your peristalsis is in overdrive.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
So yes, you can benefit from the relaxation and again, calming your mind. I think anybody can benefit from mind calming and affirmation techniques. However, this particular service is not.
You don't want to stimulate that anymore.
Right. We don't want to stimulate you anymore.
Okay. I just had to ask just to make sure, because what you said makes sense.
Yes.
But just in case. Okay. Well, is there any other advice or tips you have in regards to, everything that we just talked about with, the constipation, people having constipation, utilizing this service to help remedy that? Do you have any tips or even advice on how people can find a practitioner like you who are not here local in the Phoenix area and they can't come rush down and see you? Do you have any tips on how to find somebody who offers these services?
So I'm going to start with that question, then answer the next question.
Okay.
So the way that I discovered what I do is I was going to physical therapy prior to my surgery, and it was to strengthen my abdominal muscles.
Okay.
And so the physical therapist that I was seeing actually provided not this service, but half of it.
Okay.
So she provided the cupping, and then she told me where to find them to do it for myself at home. So I'm going to say that if you have access to Amazon, you can buy, they're called plastic cupping tools, suction tools, and you can use those for yourself. And you can find a physical therapist that can at least do that part. And then you can ask for a massage. Maybe they do massage, maybe they don't. I have not found anyone that does the exact service, but you can kind of piecemeal it. I have one of my clients, she's from Taiwan. She said that she got it all the time in Taiwan, that they do it pretty much everywhere, like how we have massage therapists everywhere. Yeah. She said that they have tons of people that do this where she's from. So
it surprised me.
Right. So I would imagine that if you found maybe a Taiwanese masseuse or Taiwanese massage place, that they probably can do it for you, because she said they did it, and sometimes they would provide acupuncture at the end of the service. So I would assume that that would be a good resource too. No matter where you live, there's a Taiwanese masseuse somewhere in your area. So I would start with them and then go physical therapy if that doesn't work out. Yeah. As far as advice, so I'm going to give a disclaimer because of my license.
Yes.
I am a nurse and I am not giving you medical advice. Anytime that you need help, please contact your provider for any medical direction. Right. However, I'm going to give you a general hypothetical if I were you.
Okay.
So if I were you and I was dealing with these types of issues. The first thing you need to do, like I said, is always assess your food. You always need to have a food diary and see what you're putting in your mouth.
Okay.
You need to know that bananas are constipating. You need to know that apples are constipating. Like, these things are great
Really?
for
Apples too?
Yes.
I thought it was the opposite. Oh my
Bread,
gosh. Okay.
apples. Let me see. I'm gonna do the R. Bread, rice, apples. I'm missing one. Anyway, those things are constipating. So it's good to know those types of things.
Right.
Like, apples are great for you because of the nutrition, and applesauce is great for you. Now, if you eat too many, too many of any of these things causes diarrhea, because your body is saying, I got too much. But it's not the fruit that's causing it. It's the nutrients in the fruit. Like, you're getting too much of that, and that's what your body's trying to get rid of. But if you have diarrhea, if you eat apples, they help stop your diarrhea. If you eat bananas, they help stop your diarrhea. So those types of things. Rice helps stop. So if they help stop diarrhea, they must cause constipation. Right?
Okay. Makes
So
sense.
knowing where your food comes from, papayas, all these types of different things we put in our body, everything we consume has side effects. So knowing what those are, Google, AI is here. You can look it up. Just make sure that you're choosing a reputable site, right? And then water. We are made mostly of water. So to think that we don't need it is crazy.
Right.
So you have to drink water. And if you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated.
Right.
So,
good point.
Yeah, so you need to make sure that you stay ahead of that. Another thing that's out here big lately is people saying you don't need water because you need electrolytes, which is true. You need both. So making sure that you have a balance. Our body runs off of, again, vitamins and minerals. Right. So we are on, as far as where you need the sodium, like in Arizona, we sweat a lot, right? So you're losing sodium. Inside of your body, there's a potassium and sodium pump. So for every potassium, there's a sodium, right? Okay. So when we're losing too much sodium, our potassium increases. And then what happens after our potassium increases is we have heart palpitations. That's how people die from dehydration. It's because we have too much potassium. So again, we have to make sure, and like when you start getting cramps, it's because of the magnesium. Everything in your body has to stay in homeostasis. Right. So that being said, you have to eliminate all of those things to then realize, okay, I got my water, I got my nutrition. What else is it? Yeah. And then that's the point where you need to either find me or someone like me to help you for the next step. But don't run to the medicine cabinet. The medicine cabinet is great, but you have to know, in nursing and medical, we have to get an assessment before we go take medication. That's why the doctor gets your labs. That's why you get a physical, because you have to know what you're dealing with first before you go and drink the tea or whatever it is. So, and I recommend for everybody in general, whether you're coming to me or just living your life, get labs at least once a year. Because you have to know where you are in order to know where you're going.
Exactly.
So,
good advice. Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and helping us learn more about a different holistic healing modality. Will you tell our listeners how they can find you? Because it kind of sounds like you're one of a kind here. Some people might be flying into Phoenix just to come see you now after hearing this. So tell our listeners how to find you, and then I'll also post it in the notes so it'll be written out too. Okay. Well, I'm really easy to find. I am Tricky Royalty. TRICKY, Royal, TROYALTY, everywhere. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Threads, I'm on everywhere, trickyroyalty.com. So as long as you type in Tricky Royalty in your Google search, you'll find me. It'll pop up. Except for Twitter. Not on Twitter. Okay, I'm everywhere but Twitter. Got it. Okay. Well, thank you so much again for being here today. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to today's episode of Holistic Health Explained. I am your host, Shantae. Be well, my friends.